Hey guys, just kind of a quick content warning about this upcoming video. It's going to be containing some topics pertaining to BDSM. With that, we're going to be talking a little bit about like choking, restraints, just bondage using ropes and other ties, and just all kinds of different things like that. And um, it's kind of the main thing. The main thing I just want everybody to be aware of some of the content within this video for the sake of not having anybody being caught unaware of some of the topics that are coming on there. We will be covering slightly small amounts of topics pertaining to like degradation and just a little bit more vocab used commonly within BDSM. Also, I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm editing this video, and I was specifically kind of sick when we were recording that, so I have like just super like tired, sleepy eyes, and it's kind of funny editing it now. But anyways, here's our video for our beginning intro into BDSM. Hope you enjoy.
Brody!
How's it going? Welcome to BASEX. I'm Jade.
And I'm Dani. We are sex educators with Enchantasy's Intimate Boutique.
We're also married, and in our free time, we spend way too much time yelling at our cats to get off the dang counter.
In this episode, we are going to be kicking off a BDSM series. So this series in particular is specifically designed for people who are kind of new to BDSM, are kind of interested in getting into it. We are not professional BDSM educators. I do want to specify that. We are sex educators, and BDSM is encompassed by that.
There's little topics and stuff that we just do all over the place anyway. And that's why we're trying to have this more so targeted as a beginner than anything. So
because we recognize that if we get too much more advanced than that, we probably won't meet certain standards.
Yeah. But even still, if at any given point while we're doing any of these videos, if any of you watching knows that we have anything wrong, please let us know in the comments. We'll address that in the next part of the segment. So I think the first thing we wanted to talk about is actually some just general vocab pertaining to BDSM. What's our first thing?
So first, what BDSM actually is. So it's an acronym that stands for a bunch of different things all slammed together.
It's been kind of a slowly evolving process, but essentially it's not necessarily BDSM anymore. It's technically BDDSSM.
But that didn't sound as good.
Yeah, so they
BDSM.
Brought it down.
So the first B and D stands for bondage and discipline. So that's like your handcuffs, your rope, your punishments, that kind of stuff.
So bondage, discipline, dominance, submission.
So dominance and submission is the power dynamic that happens in BDSM relationships. So there's generally a dominant and a submissive. There's also a thing called a switch. So you can kind of think of it as dominance is on one side of a spectrum and sub is on another side, and this like gray area in between is a switch.
And we'll talk about that here actually in a second, going into other vocab words actually. So bondage, discipline,
Domination and
submission, sadism, masochism.
Yeah, so sadism is the pleasure in inflicting consensual pain, and masochism is the pleasure in receiving consensual pain.
Now, the big thing that we wanted to talk about also in that is the concept of consensual. The difference between abuse and BDSM is exercised consent and having both parties or even multiple parties fully aware of what's going to be going on within the particular scene.
Yep, communication is very, very important. Everybody's out to make sure that everybody else has a good time. So what are some other vocab words that we wanted to talk about?
One word I just used was scene. So something that's just, again, pertaining to some of the lingo used within the BDSM and fetish communities. A scene is just the word reserved for what's going on in any in particular interaction. So, if you are exercising a BDSM scene, it could be the I don't know. You have somebody tied up in rope to a chair, and you're using maybe like a flogger on their back, or maybe you have somebody tied over a bench and you're using like a drip candle. Whatever the expressed fetish that's being portrayed in going on and acted out by the two people in their respective roles, the overall premise, the agreed upon what's going to be going on, is the scene.
Yeah, it's a weird word. It's kind of difficult to verbally explain. So it's a contained, pre-planned BDSM thing. Um, Past that, there's something called SSC, which means safe, sane, consensual. So it means that everybody involved is safe,
Same.
sane being like of sound mind, and then consensual meaning like everybody wants to be there, everybody enthusiastic consent. So I am enthusiastically giving my yes to do
You're not just kind of being
this.
peer pressured into
Yeah.
it. Yeah. The other thing with it, like specifically with BDSM, as long as everybody is looking out for the wellness, the healthy, just general nature and pleasure of everything, BDSM should be a very strong like pinnacle of pleasure, sexual pleasure, health, and wellness.
That little
A little
happy
pyramid. Yep.
triangle. Yay. So let's get into it. I'm sure we'll come up with more vocab words as we go because we can't just think of them all
Well,
beforehand.
and that's something. Just again, sitting down at like munches and meet and greets. That's kind of what a munch is. Do you know
I was gonna
that?
say munch.
Like interacting with these parties, you quickly start realizing like they have all kinds of different abbreviations on everything.
Thousands upon thousands of
And
words.
the reasoning for that is just because like there's all kinds of different fetishes, all kinds of little groups within this in particular kind of
It gets
organization.
complicated. We'll
Like
just say it gets complicated.
basically it's just like they have these abbreviations, so like when you're saying something, instead of trying to explain everything what the fetish is, you just say these two letters, and it's just like, okay,
Oh,
so
okay.
this
They're
is
into
what's going
that.
on,
Cool.
and then they give you a subcategory of what's going on to that. So it's a lot of kind of branchy passage.
So getting into the meat of the video here, we'll talk about kind of our first experiences and first exposure into kink and BDSM. So let's start with you.
So, it's my first time dabbling into BDSM. I wasn't formally trained in BDSM. I didn't have like a dom that I was working under. It wasn't anything like that. It was just a matter of like me and a partner were a little bit curious into trying. So we bought like a horribly little cheap set that was like a blindfold, a plastic breathable ball gag, a pair of handcuffs, and then like some of those just erotic like kink dice. So they just you'd roll it and it'd be like
Spank ear.
yeah, something.
Don't
like,
spank ears.
Don't do that.
Um.
But it was just like something stupid like that, and it's like okay, whatever. The handcuffs broke like within the first use. The breathable ball gag was like pretty like collapsible. You could kind of chew through it. Um, the blindfold didn't really work the best, and the elastic kind of wore out really down, and just the dice were just kind of stupid. So like, it wasn't really much of anything. And then from there, it was probably evolved with several different partners. Like, we did a little bit of like kind of restraints and stuff like that, like just really basic like cuffs and stuff, and then spanking, floggers, and it never really went too far into that. I didn't do too much. Like really, the in the past year is like where I've learned a lot of any of my like general rope play and ties and stuff for that. And well, maybe like 2 or 3 years. Basically, well, me and Danny have been together. We've been kind of exploring that route a little bit more.
Yeah. In past relationships, for me, it was kind of just very minimal, experimental, not a lot, maybe some handcuffs. So the exploring BDSM has been the same for me as it's been mostly with you. I do know that I used to be primarily a switch, but specifically with you, like I tried being dominant like once or twice, and I was like, no, this isn't right. That's not how this works. So for our dynamic specifically, like I'm very submissive, um, with an asterisk, um, and you're very dominant with no asterisk. So my asterisk is being, I can get kind of bratty sometimes, and
In that context, like a brat within that, like specifically acts outside of the general premise of a sub, like challenging their dom, just essentially to have the dom
yeah.
reinstate their dominance.
But it
Um,
was agreed upon beforehand. I'm not topping from the bottom, so I'm not telling you what to do to me, if that
mhm.
makes any sense. Um,
But even still, like generally, and it's funny because the dynamic is a little bit reversed. Because I've seen in some cases with a within like more advanced people for BDSM, the dom will control like every aspect of the sub's life. And again, it's more so a basis of like trying to build structure in that person's life.
vocab time. That's called a 24/7. So it means that they're 24/7 in a domination and submission relationship. That dynamic just doesn't work for us. And
Yeah.
that's okay.
And the reason why on that is actually kind of funny. So like I'm very typically a dom in the bedroom, but then in regards to controlling like our financial situation and like just generally keeping us on track for a lot of things,
Like, yeah, I handle all the
handles
finances for the
everything.
household. I have mom powers. In the like, hey, where is this? Or hey, we're out of this. Like, we're out of. I think we were. You thought we were running low on toothpaste recently. I was like, no,
Just pulled up more.
right here. Um,
But and with it like and I kind of feel bad on that. I very typically have that kind of like absent-minded like professor basis. Like it's kind of comical half the time. Like if I need to like go through the store's camera footage for anything, I'll run into a moment there where I'm like I'll see myself on camera and I'm running in a circle. So well, not running, but like pacing in a circle, just talking to myself on camera when there's just nobody around. And like I have a lot of moments like that where I just kind of am zoning out, just kind of working on my own thing. So just that's just how the dynamic works for
yeah,
us.
it's and that's what's cool about BDSM is that every dynamic is different. Every relationship is different. Getting into that, how about we talk about limits? So, hard limits and soft limits, vocab word. A hard limit is something that you're not comfortable with under any circumstances. Soft limits, they can be things that you're not comfortable with except in very specific circumstances, or something you're not comfortable with now but might be open to later. Um, so generally, hard limits are easier. Um,
And with it within BDSM, if at any given point you're talking with your partner trying to figure out a scene, anything that is a maybe that you're not 100% sure on, just call it a no for the sake of like not jumping into anything that you're not prepared for.
you can try later or discuss trying later. So for me, my limits would be I don't do choking, I don't do collars. Um, so like even this shirt is a little high for me today. Um, oh gosh, it's hard to think of them right off the top of my head. Um, I'm not crazy about impact play toys. I am all for hand spankings, all for them. Um, but I just don't like them very much. I wouldn't necessarily call it a limit. I'm just not crazy about them. You had mentioned blood play.
Yeah, a hard limit for me. I don't care for like physically drawing blood from a partner if you're doing harder BDSM like impact play. Um,
Or even like needles and stuff.
yeah, like it's for me. I just don't necessarily care for the dynamic. There's also a lot more into like cleanup and taking care of your partner afterwards, which we'll talk about here in a second. There's just a lot more things that can kind of go wrong with those things, and it just, for me, I want to try and just keep things a little bit more fun and easy. I don't. It doesn't need to be like insane. Now, in this one is another hard limit that I have that's kind of funny because like half the time, so impact play with um, like myself on a receiving end, I don't care for it, which again I'm typically playing the dom, so I don't really care for the submissive role anyways. But one of the things that I don't really care for within impact play is specifically, um, I don't really care for the impact itself, and it's funny because you'll go into the store and half the time if I'm demoing impact play items to people, I'm there full blown like whipping my arms and stuff, like showing people the difference on them, explaining that it's not bad, it's not going to be unpleasant or anything. The difference on that is I very much know my own body and where I can and can't hit. The problem with it is that I have, due to kind of a number of some past injuries, I have a lot of like just general chronic pain that improperly placed impacts can kind of exaggerate it. So it's not so much that like the hit itself really hurt. It's just if you start doing too much, like, if I start getting too much swelling in certain like areas, it can be kind of a pretty persistent pain throughout the day, and it's never necessarily really worth going into. Like it's just I've never really cared for. But that's kind of the main areas that I really kind of don't really like as far as anything I've actually tried that I've been like, yeah, I don't care for. Those would be the hard ones.
Um, and then what are kind of not necessarily the opposite of limits, but like, what do you really like? How about that?
Um,
My nose.
I do enjoy like our like rope plays and stuff like that, just because it's
I
kind
was
of
gonna
like
say, I think I might be a rope bunny.
um, just because it's kind of a interesting like visual appeal. Like you personally, you really like marks and stuff like that during like sex, like
Love
hickeys
marks.
and stuff like that, and the ropes can leave little binding marks and stuff, like just the impressions on the skin, and
It looks really cool.
yeah, it's a really good strong visual.
And it feels. We did a kind of a harness thingy recently. It felt like a hug. I like hugs. Hugs are good. We already talked about spanking. We're here for spanking. Um, One dynamic of our relationship that we haven't really gotten into is that you are into like degradation play.
Mm.
Um, and we've been tiptoeing into it, like very slowly, like very
So,
slowly.
for anybody who doesn't know what degradation play is, it's just essentially a little bit more. It's kind of like pillow talk, a little bit more gratuitous. It's essentially kind of the like,
It's a very specific type of dirty talk.
yeah, it's bringing yourself up by kind of bringing your like partner like down. It's not like verbal abuse again. It's again just playing those in particular roles, and in a role play dynamic is what I really care for. Like it's funny anytime anybody like makes a statement of like, yeah, Jade's kind of into that, and then it's just like that nobody really ever. Hi, Charlie. He just cuddles onto my arm. Like nobody really ever kind of picks up on anything like that for me because I'm usually very generally respectful for anybody I'm like doing that, and it's just like again, it's not
It's in very
it's in
specific
specific
circumstances.
context of like
Yeah.
what we're doing, and so it's just yeah.
Um, so to finish up, so we started with vocab and limits and what we like, and we might as well finish up with aftercare. Would you like to give the definition, or do you want me to do it?
So aftercare across the board, it's kind of all in its name. It's care that you apply after the scene has concluded. It is just the steps that you follow for the sake of double checking to make sure everybody is both physiologically and psychologically sound.
Say
Uh,
physically.
physically
Yeah,
sound. Whatever.
physically and psychologically.
The main aspect on there is like if somebody is gotten really badly hurt, check in with them, like make sure, like treat the thing. Like if you are doing a very hard impact thing and you manage to cut somebody, grab like the triple antibiotic creams and a band-aid and clean everything and make sure everything's good. Check in with them, make sure they're not like, oh, that was really intense and crying or anything. It's just simply like sometimes just taking the time to hug somebody. If it's a basis that they're dehydrated, get your partner water. It is just everybody is double checking to make sure everybody is completely fine with everything that happened.
Um, so for me, being submissive, there's a thing that can happen even for us in particularly intense vanilla sex, where I kind of go into like an altered state of consciousness, and afterwards I get really cold, which is interesting. Um, Viewing kind of from the outside, if you will, it'll be like the middle of summer and I'll need like fluffy footy pajamas and a blanket and I'm shivering. I also, like, cuddles fix everything for me. Just being held, that kind of stuff. I generally get pretty dehydrated, but I'm like dehydrated all the time, so that might be unrelated. Chocolate's good. How about you?
Aftercare for me, I kind of like more so like massaging and stuff. It just again with some of like the chronic pains and stuff like it, too much strain can kind of cause me to start getting a lot of like just sore aching, and then the downside to it is like I can't do too much cuddling. I can still cuddle and I still like it. It's a matter that if I'm in the same position for too long, I get a lot of like kind of cramps that'll happen and just kind of start locking up a little bit. So it's just one of those things where I need to be able to move a little bit. Sometimes just taking a hot shower, just the heat will help everything kind of relax a little bit too. So like depending on what was going on in it, um, just little things like that just kind of help with the general like pain and stuff. And with it, it's really just kind of like work any sore joints, heat treat it, or even occasionally just like something like ibuprofen or something, just for the sake of like getting swelling down. So.
Um, so going forward, we are going to be doing a bunch of different videos on how to safely explore and get into BDSM. Um, Again, I want to reiterate that this is for beginners, so if you are more experienced, you might not find too much helpful, um, but thanks for watching anyway. So, thank you. Thank you very much.
So, thank you for watching. This has been BASEX of BDSM. Is that what we're calling this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The intro video to BASEX for BDSM. No, BASEX of BDSM for beginners. Names are hard, yo.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Please like, share, subscribe. Also, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just using some variation of Dani Jade BASEX.
Feel free to message us if you have any questions, or if you have a certain topic you want us to talk about. You're so cute. This episode has been brought to you by Enchantisy's Intimate Boutique, with 4 locations in North Dakota and Minnesota.
It's also been brought to you by the letters B, D, S, and M.
And the color yellow. I don't know why.
Safety color.
There's yellow on your shirt.
Oh, there you go. You can also shop at enchantises.com. And feel free to follow Enchantises on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well.
Yeah, they have all that social medias.
But, yeah.
So, thanks again. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Charlie. Bye.
He's like sleeping. He
He's
don't
like,
care.
no.
Didn't like work with a timeout.